Starting a new car company is a tricky business, and even more so when you're trying to create a supercar with 6 wheels.
What?
Pagani and Koenigsegg are probably the only 2 smaller companies that have managed to break through and compete with the likes of Ferrari and Lamborghini. Well, Covini Engineering, a flamboyant family-run company, gave it a good go. But unsurprisingly, they failed. But they did some interesting things along the way. So we're going to dive into what they did right and what they didn't. And it's a really interesting story. Competing with established manufacturers such as Ferrari, Lamborghini and Porsche is not easy, and we've seen so many others come along with bright ideas, mad designs and bold claims to fall by the wayside. Covini Engineering is one you've probably never heard of, but it definitely had the mad design part nailed down. Search around on the internet and you'll notice there isn't a huge amount of information on the founder, Ferruccio Covini. Born in Italy in 1948, he's a mechanical engineer with a passion for cars and engines. In 1978, he started his own company, Covini Engineering, in order to make parts for other manufacturers. Creating a 6-wheel supercar was an ambitious project, especially given the only other cars Covini Engineering had on its resume was a series of diesel-powered sports cars, none of which were particularly successful. And from what we can see here, there are no solid reasons for the preference of diesel engines over the more common petrol engines. It was likely just a move to stand out from the crowd and try something unique. Always trying to do something different, Ferruccio wanted to build a 6-wheeled sports car because he was apparently disappointed at how his 4-wheeled cars handled and performed in slippery conditions. Unfortunately, the wild project was abandoned not too long after its inception, which was put down to a lack of low-profile tyre technology at the time. Now, we don't know for sure here, but with these much smaller wheels, it's difficult to get the brakes and the uprights inside them. One of the ways you can do this is to have very low profile tyres to help maximise this space. But back to the beginning. The first ever Covini was actually an off-roader, the T44 Turbo, revealed at the Turin International Motor Show in 1978. It was a boxy and rugged turbo diesel 4x4 with interchangeable body panels, seemingly intended to make it cheap and easy to replace damaged panels, although its website strangely described the 82 horsepower T44 as a sports car. What? I mean, look at it, that isn't a sports car in anybody's book. Covini claims there was actually serious plans to put it into production. The designs and patents were bought by a company called VM Motori, now owned by Fiat, with a view to it being produced by Alfa Romeo. Unfortunately, Alfa Romeo's bankruptcy in 1982 put an end to any potential plans, and only one prototype was ever built. Next up, and taking a different turn from the slow and ugly 4x4, the 2-seater B24 turbo cooler was then revealed at the Geneva Motor Show in 1981. It was named the Turbo Cooler after Covini's new air-to-water intercooler technology, of which this car was built as a testbed for. Covini claimed this was the first diesel car to reach 200 kilometers an hour. That's 124 miles an hour. It was powered by a mid-mounted 130 horsepower 2.4 litre 4-pot diesel engine, and no, we still have no idea why Ferruccio Covini loves diesels so much. Beside that, Covini had some actual sales success with the B24, managing to sell a total of 9 cars to the US market. Covini then tried its hand at a 4-seater coupe in 1985 with the T40 Overboost. The 146 mile an hour 4-seater was powered by, surprise surprise, another diesel engine. Unfortunately, the capacity of that engine is uncertain, considering that Covini lists 3 different numbers on its website: a 3.3, a 3.5 and a 4 litre. Maybe you could get them all, I don't know. The Italian company claimed this was the first diesel-powered car to feature an overboost function, which presumably worked by temporarily increasing boost pressure in a particular gear or section of the rev range. Unfortunately, the T40 never made production and none were sold. The next ridiculously named Covini was the C36 Turbotronic. launched in 1998. It was a mid-engined diesel sports car, of course, with a claimed top speed of 186 miles an hour. Placed behind the seats was a 3.6-litre inline six engine with 313 horsepower. Much like the cars it followed, the fiberglass-bodied C36 was yet another prototype, and none were ever sold. So at this point, Covini's mark on the automotive industry wasn't very big, with its only other work including helping design the Callaway C7 and the European version of the 90s Cadillac STS. Then, after a long layoff of over 20 years, the six-wheel project was reignited. In 2004, a prototype C3A was revealed to the world, with the production version name eventually changing to the C6W. No overboost or turbotronics, just the boring C6W. This time though, Ferruccio finally seemed to let go of his obsession of diesel engines and fitted a mid-mounted 434 horsepower petrol V8 out of an Audi. In true Covini style, it used four 16-inch wheels at the front and two 20s at the rear that powered the C6W. They did mention a potential V12 upgrade, which would have been cool, but again, this never made it out of the factory. We're not exactly sure why the sudden switch to petrol, other than the fact that its previous attempts at diesel sports cars didn't exactly set the world on fire, but it was actually pretty quick for the time, doing 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds and a top speed of 186 miles per hour. The price, a reported €300,000. 2005 saw a slightly updated version at the Geneva Motor Show, this time with a Targa-style removable roof and an upgraded interior. I mean, if it worked for Porsche, why wouldn't it work for Covini? The C6W reportedly then went into production with 6 to 8 cars built every year. So why on earth have we got 4 front wheels? Well, in Formula 1, both the Williams and Ferrari teams had previously experimented with 6-wheeled cars by adding a pair to the back, but never actually went ahead with the idea. However, more inspiration probably came from the Tyrrell P34, an F1 car from the 70s that had 4 front wheels. So at the time, there were rules saying the front wings of the car could be no wider than 1.5 meters, which meant the usual wide wheels and tires often stuck out proud of the wing, negatively affecting the car's aerodynamics. To combat this, Tyrrell fitted 2 smaller front wheels that weren't as tall and tucked neatly behind the front wing. Very clever. The improvement in aerodynamics was a plus, but adding 2 more wheels does come with its problems. As you might imagine, adding more wheels equals more complexity, mainly to both the steering and suspension systems. On bumpier circuits, the rear front wheels would lose contact with the ground, leaving less rubber in contact with the track and reducing grip. The P34's 6-wheel design only lasted a year or so, and though it was iconic, it was a piece of Formula 1 technology that never made it into mainstream road cars. The more common method of adding wheels is to add an extra pair at the rear, but this is much more common when it comes to rugged off-roaders and military vehicles, rather than low-slung supercars and sports cars. Dually trucks like the Ram 3500 will have 2 extra wheels on the same axle, whereas cars like the G63 6x6 and Hennessy Velociraptor 6x6 put them on an axle of their own. These cars usually send power to all 6 wheels in an effort to improve traction with an increased contact patch. In addition to the extra traction, getting a flat tyre has a much smaller effect when you've still got 5 left. So why did Covini fit 4 wheels to the front of the C6W? Covini claims that having 4 smaller front wheels means you can reduce the overall weight of the wheels, which has a dramatic effect on the handling of the car. Like the Tyrrell, it also claims that the C6W has improved aerodynamics due to the 4 smaller front wheels, as well as more braking power, better ride comfort, and generally more grip. The C6W's design is textbook supercar if you ignore the parts bin headlights and taillights. As if having 6 wheels wasn't enough, it also had scissor doors and of course the option of a removable roof. It does look deceptively long in the pictures and video due to the extra axle, but it's actually quite stubby at just under 4.2 meters, which makes it a fair bit shorter than a Lamborghini Huracan. The project has been going on since the 70s, and though Covini claimed its in limited production, the information is vague. They haven't kept their website up to date, but it does show a running version of the car on display at an Italian car show as recently as 2019. From what we can see and hear, it still has the same Audi V8 from 17 years ago, so it's possible that the C6W could do with a refresh if Covini does want to keep things going. There was even a mention of creating a hybrid version, but I wouldn't hold your breath. If you enjoyed this, please check out this other video which we think you'll love, and don't forget to subscribe to the Driven channel. Cheers, and I'll see you next time.